Can the UK kick the habit of debt? Welcome to Mark and Pete. Here's a thought.
Time to kick the habit. If credit is the crack cocaine of commerce, and more borrowing is the heroin of harm, where money is the marijuana of overspending, consumers are hooked on another shot in the arm. How many of us are hooked on the concept of debt? Well, it does seem that debts are increasing, but of course it's not just about consumers. Nations themselves have got themselves into debt, haven't they, the United Kingdom? So we can see here that this isn't just something that's happened in recent years. We've seen decades of a culture, of a concept of having debt, where you manage your debt, you can still have more and more possessions. But now things are coming home to roost. Clergyman Pete, I ask you, how long can we carry on with this culture of managing debt?
Well, businessman Mark, it's important, of course, for debts to be settled. It's a principle on which good governance is based, you would have thought, and that doesn't seem to be happening nationally. You know, we talk often about what the Bible says on subjects here, and the Bible has this concept of the Jubilee year. Numbers 36 verse 4 in the Bible has a ram's horn being blown, and the year of Jubilee starts every 50 years, where you have 49 years of working, then you have this year of Jubilee. And during that time, you have to release slaves and forgive people their debts. It's time to stop building up debt and to pay it off. And I think this year, we had the Queen's Jubilee, and then of course, sadly, we had her funeral. But let's have a national Jubilee. Let's commit to working towards paying off debt. That's as individuals. But what about as a country? Well, in the end, we need to work towards it, I would say. But the question, Mark, is if we're in a position where we need the economy to be boosted, we need to get people back into work. Is that time, as a businessman, you'll have views on this, is that the time to start using the money that you have to pay off debt, or should that be left till later and the money be used on other things? Should the budget be configured around, as seems to have happened with the Kwasi Kwateng mini budget, of reducing tax?
Well, let's look at the bigger picture. So as we sort of talk about here, really debt has become something of a drug. It's become a habit. Now, we'll talk about it in three key ways. There's what governments do, there's what businesses do, and there's what consumers do. Now, one of the reasons why in my opinion, a lot of people have got themselves into trouble, let's start with the consumer one, for example, is that interest rates have been relatively low, certainly in the last 15 years, possibly even longer than that. If I sort of look back over the course of the last 50 years, as we know, the interest rates have fluctuated from very high ones during the 70s, peaked and dipped during the 80s, and the 90s peaked again. If you think about mortgage rates, they sort of reached about 15% in some cases. Now, that's quite eye-watering. And we know that, of course, in the 21st century, things like interest rates, the Bank of England's interest rates, have really plummeted down to 0.25% of 1%. And that's been very low. But we're starting to see the challenge. Why? Well, there's a series of measures here that have happened. Consumers have basically worked on the principle of borrowing. They've borrowed for their cars, they've borrowed for their homes, they've borrowed for their holidays and many other things. It's very easy to get sucked into that habit when you can pay back, when the monies that you pay back, the interest rate is low. But of course, once it starts to creep up, it catches up on you. We've had fluctuating interest rates, but this time, where people have built up large portions of debt, it's a problem. And what we have seen statistically is more and more consumers in particular have built up greater debt than ever before. And that's one of the problems here, that people are concerned. Nations as well have also got themselves in terrible debt. Now, we know why, rightly or wrongly, that through COVID, it was made as as we've seen recently, that the furlough system cost the United Kingdom a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, okay, some people said that was a good thing to begin with, but unfortunately it continued. In fact, some people, as we've highlighted on previous shows, didn't actually go back to work for over a year, and yet were still paid by the government. They were given funds. This furlough system, basically, through lockdowns and other measures, meant that certain businesses could not function. What a disaster for the economy. And then, of course, we look at businesses. Now, there's nothing wrong with a business having debt. Many startup companies start with a debt, effectively a loan from a bank or possibly an investment company, and that is a common thing to do. But what you're typically doing is you're managing that debt according to the business that you're going to generate, the investments that you're going to make in equipment and or people to start to drive things out. I think the problem here is on all fronts, it's gone too far. And this habit that we're now seeing where people have got themselves more and more into debt has set now a terrible precedent. But my worry is this: whether you're in business, whether it's the government, whether you're a consumer, that look at that legacy that the next generation and generations to come have to manage. So, Clergyman Pete, I would say here is, I think that we have to start recognizing we're going to have to compromise. Consumers may have to just make do and mend, not go on as many holidays, not perhaps buy as many things that they can't afford. Now, I know that not necessarily going to apply to everybody. The nation, unfortunately, my worry is starting to get to really awkward levels of debt. And that could mean that certain things won't be invested in. And we know that if governments can't pay for National Health Service, and here's the worry that we've seen recently, pensions. Pensions have been under terrible threat, and the Bank of England had to come into the market and actually buy some of that debt to sort of quash some of the market concerns. Then you are in real trouble. So how many more crises can we continue with? And that's the thing that worries me now. We have to try and build into people's mindsets that debt needs to be managed better.
Yes, I mean the problem that the British government now has is that, of course, there's been a reaction of the markets. The British pound has sank very low immediately after the announcement of the measures that Kwasi
and can I just
Kwateng
mention on this point is it meant that basically from a business perspective, if you're trying to buy goods from abroad, they're costing an enormous amount. And that's why you're seeing things, whether it be supply chains, whether you're a manufacturing company where you're bringing parts and components, if you're a food-based company or retailer, you're seeing goods getting more and more expensive on the shelves.
Yeah, and that will mean also energy. The money that that the government is promising to pay in order to cap the energy costs for families and then also for businesses, the money required is going to go up because of this, because of the exchange rate, and this being paid for, according to the Chancellor Kwasi Kwateng, by borrowing. So the whole country, as well as individuals, has a problem of the habit of going into debt, and they're going to go into more debt. But the argument is, of course, this is temporary, getting us through a difficult period. The problem with that is, that's what they all say. You know, if you've got a bad habit, say if you're an alcoholic will say, yeah, I'll just have one more. It seems that we need to start paying off the debt.
There's only so many times you can do it.
And so we need to cut costs, and because there were certain costs that are going to be forced upon us. There's increase in defence spending because of the uncertainty of international relations at the moment, and there is the problem of this cap on energy prices as well. With that being the case, surely that means, businessmen, that other things have to go. The government has to stop spending as much.
Well, I think, unfortunately, the general public, particularly in the United Kingdom, we know that we're not the only country facing these challenges. But if we just look at this particular nation, it will have to compromise. And unfortunately, I can see that there will be things that will be impacted. Here's some predictions. Don't be too surprised, folks, if you are thinking of retiring in your 60s, that you might have to wait a little bit longer to get your next pension if you are going to retire. Why? Well, as we've already seen, they came very, very close to not being able to meet those obligations. And yes, the markets were quite calmed and they were sort of quashed a little bit and things were managed. But you can own, as Clergyman Peter said, there's only so many times you can keep doing this. It gets harder and harder each time. And basically, the big snowball, the big mountain of debt that has been rolling for the last 20 odd years is just growing and growing and growing. And I come back to, if we ended up with another crisis, now, whether that be a financial one, whether that's a pandemic, whether it be, you think of anything, asteroid hitting the Earth, name it, aliens landing, doesn't really matter. The fact is, if we had another one, I can't see how we can recover. And that's the problem, because I think this is why that I think that the government also has to make clear that as part of the policies that they're putting in place, whether we agree with them, whether we disagree with them, means that there's got to be some compromise. And I think that this is going to hit people's pockets hard.
The Prime Minister
with increasing interest rates.
Yeah, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, Truss and Kwateng, their plan, they've articulated it quite clearly. Their plan is to go for growth in the economy, and that's what's going to enable them from future tax revenue to be able to pay off the debt and that sort of thing. It remains to be seen, as you say, Businessman Mark, whether that works. Let us know in the comments. Go to markandpete.com, make sure you're subscribed, and then go ahead and leave us a comment. What do you think? Is the Truss and Kwateng plan daring or plain daft? Let us know.
If you're thinking you're buying something, kick the habit. Don't get into more debt.
So that'll be it from Mark and myself for this week. Bye. See you next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.